What does it mean to live a truly good life? This question has been asked for centuries, and perhaps no one has given a more profound answer than Aristotle, the great Greek philosopher and student of Plato. In his masterpiece, The Nicomachean Ethics, Aristotle explores what it means to live well, and in his Politics he explains how society and government play a role in shaping the conditions for such a life. Today, when people think of the good life, they often imagine wealth, pleasure, fame, or success, but Aristotle challenges us to look deeper. He argues that the good life is not about temporary satisfactions, but about something enduring, something that allows us to flourish as human beings, to become the best version of ourselves. Aristotle begins with a simple observation. Every action we take is aimed at some good. We work to earn money, we exercise to stay healthy, we study to gain knowledge. Yet many of these goods are pursued not for their own sake, but as a means to something else. If we keep asking, why? Why do we want money? Why do we want health? Why do we want knowledge? Eventually, Aristotle says, we must arrive at a final answer. There must be an ultimate goal, an end that is desired for its own sake, and not as a means to anything else. This ultimate goal, Aristotle calls the highest good. And identifying it, he says, is the foundation for understanding the good life. But what is it? Many people, both in Aristotle's time and in ours, think it must be wealth, honor, or pleasure. Yet Aristotle carefully examines each and finds them lacking. Wealth is not ultimate because it is always for the sake of something else. Nobody desires money just to look at coins or numbers in a bank account. Honor depends too much on the opinions of others and does not reflect who we truly are inside. Pleasure, though attractive, is something we share with animals. A life devoted only to pleasure, Aristotle says, is fit for cattle. So, what makes human life unique? For Aristotle, the answer is reason. Just as the distinctive function of a harpist is to play the harp well, the distinctive function of a human being is to live in accordance with reason. Therefore, the highest good for humans must involve the full development and exercise of our rational nature. Aristotle names this highest good Eudaimonia, often translated as happiness, but more accurately meaning flourishing or living well. Unlike fleeting emotions, eudaimonia is not a passing state of pleasure, but a condition of the whole life. It is achieved when we live in accordance with virtue, when we use reason to guide our actions and cultivate excellence in every part of who we are. Eudaimonia is not something that comes and goes with fortune or misfortune. It is a deep fulfillment, the flourishing of a human being as a complete person. It is the state of someone who has grown into the person they were meant to be. But how do we reach eudaimonia? Aristotle distinguishes between two kinds of virtues, intellectual and moral. Intellectual virtues belong to the mind. They include wisdom, understanding, and knowledge of first principles. These are cultivated through teaching, study, and experience. Aristotle emphasizes contemplation, the life of learning and seeking truth, as one of the highest expressions of our rational nature. Moral virtues, on the other hand, concern our actions and desires. They include courage, temperance, justice, and generosity. Unlike intellectual virtues, these are not learned from books alone. They are formed through habituation, through practice, discipline, and repeated right choices until they become part of our character. One of Aristotle's most famous insights is that virtue is a mean between extremes. Every virtue lies between two vices, one of excess and one of deficiency. For example, courage is the mean between cowardice and recklessness. Generosity is the mean between wastefulness and stinginess. Temperance lies between indulgence and insensibility. But this mean is not the same for everyone. Aristotle stresses that it is relative to the person, the situation, and the context. What is courageous for one person may be reckless for another. The virtuous path, therefore, is not about rigid rules, but about practical wisdom. what Aristotle calls phronesis, the ability to discern the right course of action in particular circumstances. Not everyone lives at the level of virtue. Aristotle describes a spectrum of character. At the lowest level is the vicious person who delights in evil and feels no regret. Above him is the incontinent person who knows what is right but is too weak to follow through, giving in to temptation. Higher still is the continent person who struggles with desire but manages to resist and do what is right. And finally, the virtuous person, the ideal, whose reason and desires are perfectly aligned. For him, doing the right thing is not a struggle, it is natural, joyful, and fulfilling. Aristotle knows that virtue does not develop in isolation. People are shaped by their families, their communities, and above all, the political order in which they live. This is why he insists that the purpose of the state is not merely to allow people to live, but to enable them to live well. In the Politics, Aristotle explains that laws and institutions have the power to form character. Good laws habituate citizens to virtuous behavior. Over time, people learn not only to act rightly, but to take pleasure in right action. For this reason, the legislator must possess phronesis, practical wisdom, to guide citizens toward virtue. Politics, for Aristotle, is an extension of ethics. A well-ordered society is one where people are enabled to flourish as rational and virtuous beings. Yet Aristotle is realistic. He acknowledges that not everything is within our power. Certain external goods, such as health, friendships, financial stability, and peace in society, are necessary conditions for flourishing. A person suffering extreme poverty, oppression, or constant misfortune may find it very difficult to live a fully virtuous life. This recognition raises questions even today. If some external conditions are necessary for the good life, what responsibility do we have as individuals and as societies to create those conditions for others? How can we structure our communities to give everyone the opportunity to flourish? Aristotle's insights remain a foundation for discussions of social justice and the common good. For Aristotle, the good life is not about chasing pleasure, wealth, or fame. It is about becoming fully human, living according to reason, cultivating both intellectual and moral virtues, and participating in a society that encourages human flourishing. The journey to Eudaimonia is not easy. It requires discipline, self-reflection, education, and the support of a virtuous community, but the reward is the greatest of all, a life of fulfillment, harmony, and lasting happiness. As we reflect on Aristotle's teaching, we might ask ourselves, what kind of life am I pursuing? Am I chasing temporary satisfactions, or am I cultivating the virtues that lead to true flourishing? And how can my community, my society, be shaped so that more people can live not just to survive but to live well?